So what is going on in Germany? You might have seen this. The right wing is all over it. There, if you go on Twitter, you can see people like Peter Sweden, all these white nationalist accounts celebrating this event, which of course clouds people's ability to analyze what's going on. There have been massive protests of German farmers and haulers in the country who are protesting against proposed increases in tolls, in the price of diesel, and the end of certain kind of subsidies for agricultural vehicles for farmers. Now, why has this come about? It's come about because Germany in particular is so wedded and so fearful of using debt that the Supreme Court of Germany ruled that the budget for the government in Germany was illegal, which has now led for the government in Germany to sort of scramble to make up costs, and a lot of those costs are going on everyday folks. In the case of these farmers, in the case of pulling back subsidies and increasing certain tolls for folks. Now, this is, I think, goes into like a fundamental kind of contradiction that we're having, is that we need to absolutely be shifting the way that we produce, the way that we consume energy, all this kind of stuff. But the question is going to be what version of this is possible. In Germany, both because of the kind of political weakness of the left, but also because of the neoliberal consensus around a fear of using any form of deficit spending, a fear of going into debt by any metric. We're now seeing in Germany a very real example of what might come when you start trying to push certain green policies without doing the groundwork of making sure that these things are socially equitable. So that's a little bit of the context. There's been massive protests. People have seen them, tractors driving into cities, all sorts of kind of actions like that. There's been protests all over the country. Now, what's notable is that, and one of the things that is creating a lot of anxiety is the fact that the far right is doing what the far right loves to do, which is they see people out there marching for something and they're like, oh, these folks are marching for whatever the fuck it is that we're promoting. And there's been a serious attempt from the far right in Germany to try to, infiltrate, coalesce, and take over these kind of protests. And you saw the same kind of things, for example, in Canada, certainly similar things in France too. And in Germany is no different, especially in Germany, actually, where the far right actually has a history of trying to join in and sort of circumvent these kind of protests. So there already has been, and there's going to be more appearances from some of these really odious characters on the far right. So the question is sort of like, how do we think about this and what to do about it? Well, one, I think that it's really important, and this is something that Die Linke, the left party in Germany, which is in certainly significant crisis as a party and political organization. They have at least come out and I think said some very correct things about this. And if people want to see these videos, they're in German, so I'm not going to play them here. We've seen from members of the left party in Germany basically saying we support the farmers' protests, one, in the very direct demands that they're making, but also because the agricultural and kind of political economic policies of the CDU, of the current coalition government, have been devastating for everyday folk. And that needs to change, right? I think that's the correct stance on this, and all while echoing the call that the farmers are worried of the attempt by the far right to try to infiltrate, steer, and take over these kind of movements. And I think that's just a perfect kind of baseline position to take, on when it comes to something like this. That's basically my position on it. Because you can get into some complicated things about, the class nature of the protest, right? Because some of these farmers are small landholders to large landholders. Is socialism something that we can sort of cultivate amongst the agricultural industry? Right? Those are all different questions. But when you see people reacting against austerity, reacting against the center-right consensus, reacting against the noose that Germany has tied around their neck by denying themselves the ability to have fiscal space to produce and provide for people, you should not be joining in with the center-right and the center-left in scolding people who are out there marching, right? That doesn't mean that you become a tailist, right? Which means, oh, I'm seeing this thing that is not orchestrated by the left, that's not orchestrated by the unions, not orchestrated by the socialist movement, and we're just going to sort of follow it, right? No, actively doing the work of saying, hey, this is what our program is. This is why we support you, and doing that kind of thing. And the left, I'm trying to expand even here from Germany. The left is fucking really bad at that. They let the right wing take over these kind of things all the goddamn time, because all it takes is for one kind of video to drop, one nasty person, one slogan, one thing, before the left says, hey, we're not going to fight for these folks and are going to join up with the liberals or the other forces in society that are going to be attacking them. That's a bad tendency, because it allows the right to fester. And it allows the right to seem like they actually legitimately represent the voices and frustrations of the people, because the right wing has no interest, not even just because the right wing is cynical or anything like that, but because the right wing in Germany, just like the right wing in the United States, is beholden to the same capitalist forces as the forces that are in power right now. So the right doesn't want to see sensible agricultural policy, equitable green transition, or anything like that. So you can't allow them to start pretending to be the voices of the people. I mean, there's a lot more in there, and I'm sure I would like to, speak to some of our German comrades a little bit more. But I just want to give people a kind of general breakdown and throw to you, Matt, and then we have some fun things to visit to with kind of American paranoia around these things.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Okay. So anyways, we'll do more on this. It's, there'll be more stories and things like that to see where it goes. But
yeah, I mean, we saw this with the Netherlands. I mean, Russell Brand was tailing that. I think it was last spring. Yeah, I think that's, and the thing, like the conversation around these things. One, it just needs to be, like you say, like participated in a way that isn't just showing solidarity with like the fucking German austerity regime, right? Like that's it needs to be elaborated in a way that's distinct.
I mean, I think that I'll just say this. This is a general kind of point that socialists should be able to make, is when you see kind of movements like this, you should ask yourself, what is it that people are moving about? Where does this sort of fit in with our vision of the world? And how can we use this as a kind of political education moment? How can we use this to weaken the power of our enemies, weaken the power of capital? And it's something that the left, frankly, and I think it's because they've sort of evacuated a lot of their class base. A lot of the left kind of culturally and economically is very similar to the center left, that they become very timid about doing those kind of things. And I think it's a really dangerous thing, as you see that the right is very, very capable of trying to co-opt anything. And going back to the kind of the reason we want to bring this up is the right's all over this shit. As I open up this segment, we talked a little bit about how the right wing is already over it. People like Peter Sweden, all these kind of white nationalist accounts have been like, look, this is the people are rising up in Germany, right? Already trying to put on a kind of white nationalist far right bent on it. And let's be very clear, there are already elements of that out there. AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, has been there at the protests. And that's why I think it's very important, for example, for the Party of the Left in Germany and other kind of left organizations to be showing up in the way that they have been. But anyway, the right is trying to, jump onto this kind of thing, just like they've done with all sorts of movements. And I just love this one, this clip that we're going to play here. This is from a kind of right wing TikTok dude, because it hits like a few kind of classic tropes of the weird misinformation, or what's the fancier word for it? Sensationalization of these kind of things. So anyways, we'll play this and react to it a little bit.
Hey, who's been paying attention to what's been happening in Germany? I guess better question is, who's missed it? Because not surprisingly, it's not...
Okay, we really will just sort of let this go because it is short. But this is actually, before we even get to the rest of it, Matt, can we just start on this classic fucking thing?
This is the dominant register that all this shit is spoken in, especially Russell Brand. Like, all you need to do is look at his thumbnails and titles, be like, what is, there's been no discussion of this. It's like, can we skip that part? Like, we get it. Like, yes, we have capitalist media doesn't focus on the right things. Great. Can we, like, get to the point where you're giving us details and information about this? Or does it have to be like, interesting how informed I am, and nobody else is paying attention to this. Like, people have been paying attention to this. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, maybe I would wonder if on that guy's feed he has posted anything about Gaza, for instance. But yeah, anyway.
No, I mean, look, I think that it's even worse, though, Matt, than like even, I don't even think you can even give these folks like the critique of the corporate media, because what it really is just like, hey, you're not interacting with like the news media at all. Now, I'm not going to sit here and like say that the New York Times or CNN or any of these kind of major organizations are like doing a good job. Don't get me wrong here. But why have you not heard it? Well, it's because you're not fucking reading the news in the first place, right? Yeah, exactly. It's like you get these things when they come across your TikTok feed. It's not some grand conspiracy to hide this shit from you. And then you're going to get a very wild and sensationalized version of it here from these guys. Anyway,
that's hilarious. Sorry, but that is a hilarious response to like, damn, this significant thing I haven't heard about before. It's being hidden to me, as opposed to, no, motherfucker, you got to tune in.
So anyway, there's a personal pet peeve of mine. But this, again, it really does, because so much of, I would like to maybe do something on this program or read someone else who wants to do a deep dive in it. There is a kind of like paranoid right-wing movement in this country, I think, globally, right? And you can argue that like right-wing stuff is always sort of paranoid, but there is something that is sort of like buzzy on social media, at least. It's like, you know, there's this grand conspiracy. It's very Alex Jonesy, right? There's this grand conspiracy of folks trying to keep the information from the people, and we're coming out here giving you the actual information, versus like sort of like, hey, there's a bad group of folks in power. It's actually like there is like a alternate reality project going on. And anyways, this is something that's very popular. But anyways, let's look at this for a second. Oh, sorry. I was watching that myself. Oh, there you go.
I guess better question is, who's missed it? Because not surprisingly, it's not getting very much coverage here. I guess they don't want anyone getting any ideas. You know what I mean? German farmers have been protesting against their government due to removal of tax benefits, specifically those that would end the tax break on their fuel and agricultural vehicles. This is amounting to a financial impact to the farmers of what they're saying is approximately €1 billion per year. And this is to help resolve a €17 billion deficit due to what the courts have ruled, what the German courts have ruled was unlawful spending.
Okay. So before we go any further, I mean, if you watched the segment before that we just did on Left Reckoning 152, you know, by the way, what this unlawful spending thing, and if I need to explain it again, I will just really briefly. The Germans have created this absurd system that doesn't allow them to do debt spending. So when they put forward this most recent budget, they were going to dip into some money that was not spent from the pandemic, right? Which they, in my opinion, 100% should be able to. But very controversially, by the way, in Germany, the courts blocked it and said that the budget was illegal. Right. So again, this is the German government's and the German political system's adherence to dangerous and devastating austerity that's baked into their political system. Right. You know, something great, you know, very important to be upset about and be annoyed by. But in this video, right, and this is why these guys drive me nuts, it's, you know, some kind of secret save the day superhero came in to stop the government from doing something evil, when in fact the reason that the government right now is doing austerity is because the government is pledged to doing balanced budget spending, which is, by the way, what the American fucking right wing wants us to do in this country.
Yeah. Can you say when Robbie Soab flames out and they stop paying his salary over at the Hill and they have some money to spend, hire like 8 of these guys. And I want to see them produce an actual show every day.
That would actually be really funny. We should do, and we could just raise some money and do it for them. All right, here we go.
Of money by their government. So what's the government do? They go, oh, okay. Well, we'll just tax the people to make up the difference because we don't know how to handle money. Man, does that sound familiar? And this has been their response. You know, recently, as a couple of days ago, the German government has come back and said, okay, fine. We will spread the tax impact over some years and allow the farming sector to get used to it. Well, this isn't acceptable to the farming community in Germany. and they are not backing down. They're going to continue their protests.
So, it's being saved by the Patriots. I mean, look, there's just like a fundamental, and maybe I'm being a nerd here, but like there's a fundamental contradiction here. So basically what is happening in Germany is a combination of two things. One, a devotion to avoiding debt and government spending by any means necessary, right? Which is devastating the German population. I agree with that. What is the government doing? It's doing austerity. So it's cutting social programs and social spending, which, is that sort of what the American right wing wants to do in this country? Right. So the idea that like, this is some ideology that is so foreign to the American kind of Trumpian movement is so insane to me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, and it's funny how they will, they wouldn't, like, workers striking is not something like they would, a guy like that would be as supportive of. It's get back to work. A lot of people would like that job, but these guys and like truckers here in America too, it's like, yes, the government, and it sounds rational, right? Like, you are important to our economy. It's not like some speculators in financial markets or whatever. Y'all are bringing food to market, right? People are getting fed. So, okay, maybe we give you a subsidy for your fuel, right? Like, that makes sense. But like, that is a capital sector being preferred by the government. Like, there's no like libertarianism here, like, right? There's that's all gone. It's kind of fascinating to me.
That's what I'm saying. It's so like, it's at its heart is it's like irrational and emotional, right? You start off, which is like, well, there's a big conspiracy to hide this information from you, and then basically, what are people reacting to? Well, it's the kind of shit that I would like to see happening in this country. So anyway, I think Matt and I should do a little bit more on this, because I think this style of video making and actually needs some more uncovering. But folks,
we should do videos like that. I need to just like,
I mean, I keep on thinking about doing videos in my truck. I know. I think I should start.
I would have to like, how people, have you seen this thing where people will, and I actually think there's a studio near me in Brooklyn, where you can go in and they have different sets. And famously, one looks like you're on a jet. So if you look closely, whenever you see something that takes place on a plane on TikTok or whatever, or Instagram, whether it's somebody like looking like very cool and luxurious, or something that like some
so
interaction,
absurd.
yeah, that like, wait, that's very strange behavior. It might be in one of these things, but I would need like one that looks like I'm in an F-150 or something, like in my apartment. Just be like,
no, I 100%.
You have the whole set.
I did one in the truck when remember when we got banned from YouTube for like 2 weeks?
Oh yeah.
Because of the vaccine. We did a Crowder video and they banned us from YouTube for 2 weeks. I did a call to action while driving the truck, thinking that, hoping that could maybe get us some more eyes, but yeah, we'll bring that back. Well, anyways, folks,
nobody's talking about this. And look very, as somebody commented,
nobody's talking about this.
And it's the Reserve Army of Labor.
We should do a whole series on it. That's a great idea. Just intro to Marxism. Nobody's talking about this. There's this fella out there from Germany who had some really wild ideas.
They don't want you to get any ideas.
So dangerous. He tried to come to Texas, and they actually blocked him from coming. You know that story? Karl Marx tried to immigrate to America, to Texas particularly, and they wouldn't let him. This man tried to come to Texas to help us out, and they wouldn't let him in. I think it's a really important thing for us to uncover the secret message of this young fella from Chair. All right, folks. Well, we're going to go over the post game, maybe workshop that a little bit more. Patreon.com/leftreckoning. It's a whole other episode. You want to be joining us for that. We'll be taking some questions from our good listeners and friends out there. We'll be back this Sunday with a bonus episode for all of y'all. Thank you so much for coming out and hanging out with us tonight. Looking forward to 2024. It's going to be more election coverage, but I think we'll make it through, Matt. It'll be fun.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be so much fun. I can't. The election. I love it. Yeah, folks, we're going to talk a little bit about Bill Ackman, who is he's this big money guy who tried about 15 years ago. I remember hearing about him because he was trying to short trade a pyramid scheme called Herbalife, which is a pyramid scheme, but he failed nonetheless. And I think lost that bet. But anyway, he has got his wife in trouble based on his this Claudine Gay stuff, which we haven't talked about here. I'm not super interested in. I think we'll talk about this in post game. Yeah. Patreon.com/leftreckoning to get access to that.
See y'all soon.
Peace.